In a country already on as the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump has enraged his supporters, posed the Democratic campaign, and raised fears of further political violence in the run up to November's election. Trump's Republican allies painted him as a hero on Saturday, seizing on the image of him with his ear blooded and fist raised, appearing to mouth the word fight, fight, fight. Whereas Trump has regularly used violent languages with his followers, advisors, and allies of the former president, flipped the script on his Democratic opponent, President Joe Biden, saying it was the demonetization of the Republican candidate, demonization of the Republican candidate that led to the assassination attempt. Today is not just some isolated accident. The central premise of the Biden campaign is that President Donald Trump is also authoritarian fascist who must be stopped. The rhetoric led directly to President Trump's attempted assassination. US Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio, a top candidate to be Trump's running mate, said. In a short term, the attack was likely boost Trump's appearances in his Milwaukee this week at the Republican National Convention as he accepts his party's presidential nomination, fortifying the sense of grievance and estrangement his supporters already feel towards the nation's political class. Within hours of the shooting, Trump's campaign sent out a text asking voters to contribute. They are not after me, they are after you. The message read billionaires Elon Musk and Bill Ackman, who also swiftly endorsed Trump. I fully endorse President Trump and hope for his rapid recovery, Musk said on X. Law enforcement officials were working Sunday to learn more about the 20-year-old Pennsylvania man who they say tried to assassinate former President Donald Trump at a campaign rally and to determine what drove him to open fire, killing one spectator. Authorities identified Thomas Matthew Crooks of Bethel Park, Pennsylvania as the shooter who fired from the rooftop outside the rally venue in nearby. A Central Reserve Police Force man was killed and 2 Manipur police personnel were injured when they were ambushed Sunday around 6 kilometers from the center of the Ziribam town. Police and the Manipur government said suspected Kuki militants were behind the ambush. The CRPF Jawan who was shot dead was identified as Ajay Kumar Jha, a native of Bihar. His body was taken for postmortem to the Silchar Medical College and Hospital. His killing comes around 3 months after 2 CRPF personnel were killed in a blast at a CRPF outpost in Bishnupur district. The 2 wounded police personnel received pellet injuries and are reported to be stable. Jirbam district has been tense since the outbreak of violence and arson and also there on June 6 this year. According to police, the area where the incident took place between Sejang Kuki village and Mongbang Methi village also been tense following heavy firing on Thursday, after which police has recovered arms and ammunition. With the opposition Save the Constitution poll narrative having damaged the BJP's prospect in several seats across the country during the Lok Sabha elections, the union government is set to embark on an extensive campaign to celebrate 75 years of the Constitution. The government Friday announced that from next year, June 25, the day emergency was declared in 1975 would be observed as Samvidhan Hatya Divas. This year marks the 75 years of the Constituent Assembly adopting the Constitution of India. The idea is to create awareness about what the Constitution stands for. The Assembly debates and how the government has taken steps to strengthen it, a source told. The nodal ministry for the campaign will be Ministry of Culture that in 22-23 led a similar campaign named Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav to mark the 75 years of independence. While the latest campaign details are being chalked out, The BJP will win the bypolls to 10 assembly seats in UP, Party State Chief Bhupender Singh Chaudhary said Sunday. A day after the NDA's poor performance in bypolls in 7 states, Chaudhary was speaking in Lucknow as the BJP State Working Committee met for the first time after Lok Sabha results. The party leadership, including its national president JP Nadda and UP CM Yogi Adityanath, asked party workers in UP not to go on the back foot and not to lose confidence, claiming that the next fight is between Parivarwadi parties and Modi's Parivar. The leadership asked workers to become active on social media as well as on the ground to expose the lies of the opposition. The BJP leadership also warned the Samajwadi Party and its chief Akhilesh Yadav to be wary of the Congress, alleging that the latter is a parasite that consumes regional parties. BJP के कार्यकर्ता का किसी भी दिस and this, CM Adityanath told party workers and leaders, urging them to prepare for achieving victory on all 10 assembly seats where bypolls will be held soon. Nadda told the gathering to keep in mind that they are representatives of 140 crore people. Former MP High Court Judge Rohit Arya, who hit the headlines several times during his tenure, has yet again grabbed the spotlight 3 months after his retirement by joining the BJP on Saturday. Addressing a seminar, Justice Arya said, changing the penal code to justice code is a significant achievement of the current government. We are grateful to the central government for this. This will improve lives in the coming times, as the penal code was imposed on Indians during British rule and implemented with the intention of punishing them. The spirit of justice existed in our country during the Ram Rajya and Mahabharata era as well. The British were shaken by our culture and spiritually, so while attacking education, they gradually eliminated Sanskrit and prompted English, he said. Arya has begun his legal career in 1984, was designated as senior advocate on August 26, 2003 by the MP High Court. He has almost 3 decades of legal experience in civil, arbitration, administrative service, labor and tax laws. Throughout his career, Arya held several key positions. He was impaneled as a senior panel counsel of MP in the Supreme Court between 7 and 13, and also served as a standing counsel for the Income Tax Department in the MP High Court from 1999 to 2012. Concurrently, he was also the senior counsel for the Income Tax Department in Chhattisgarh between 9 and 12. From 1991 to 2003, Arya represented the Telecom Department in the MP High Court and Jabalpur bench of the Central Administrative Tribunal. He was appointed MP High Court judge on September 12, 2013 and became a permanent judge on March 26, 2015. During his tenure, Arya presided over several cases that grabbed the headlines. In 2021, he denied bail to stand-up comedians Munawar Farooqui and Nalin Yadav, who were accused of hurting religious sentiments and violating COVID-19 protocols during a show in Indore. He observed that the evidence collected shows outraging religious feelings of a class of citizens of India with deliberate intendment. The state must endeavor to ensure that this ecosystem and sustenance of coexistence in our welfare society is not polluted by negative forces, the court observed. The Supreme Court later granted bail to Farooqui while setting aside the High Court order. In another such case which has made news the year earlier, Arya granted bail to a man accused of outraging the modesty of a woman on the condition that he present himself to the complainant on the day of Raksha Bandhan and get a rakhi tied on his wrist. The accused was also directed to promise that he would protect the complainant. The decision was made the staunch criticism and was later overturned by the Supreme Court, which also issued directives to lower courts on handling bail pleas in cases related to crimes against women. Oh, please join BJP. The United States of America is witnessing a moment of deep reckoning. The assassination attempt by 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks of Pennsylvania in the presumptive Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump has revealed to the world as a septimic American political system. The real road to making America great again at this moment of truth-telling will only be navigated if the silent majority of its people act with precedented alacrity to reclaim the American dream and work together to create what President Barack Obama had once described more than 15 years ago as a more perfect union. Consider this. Sorry. Consider this. The surreal Dali-esque photograph of the blood-streaked Donald Trump with his raised fist surviving the assassination is not a metaphor for the triumph of democracy. Instead, it is reflective to the end of conversation. At the New York Times editorial board put its cultural and political polarization, the ubiquity of guns and the radicalizing power of the internet have all been contributing factors in America's deep dive into darkness. To be sure, this is not the first time that American political leaders have been targeted. 4 presidents, including Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy, were killed while in office. The Ronald Reagan and Theodore Roosevelt survived assassination attempts, but rarely before as a single act of violence reflected as cesspool of deep anger, polarization and unprecedented alienation. The language of politics, even in the hours after the assassination attempt, has been incendiary and deeply provocative. No lessons, it seems, have been learnt so far. If the US continues to pretend that it is business as usual after the Secret Service, the FBI and the American justice system have dealt with the obviously deranged actions of crooks, it will be facial attempt at addressing only the superficial symptoms. If the incident leads to a wave of sympathy for Trump and the victory in November, the tragic tide that could overwhelm the US will take the force of a tsunami. And if this act forces the Democrats to react with tactical opportunism, to abandon an unquestionably fragile Joe Biden, they will be deeply implicated in the slide towards an abyss whose contours we can still not define. On July 8, the Supreme Court laid down a framework for the representation of persons with disabilities in visual media. This was in response to an appeal against the verdict of Delhi High Court. The case dealt with the movie Aankh Micholi, which had characters with myriad forms of disability. Since its trailer launch, disability activists and scholars have criticized it for perpetuating stereotypes and prejudices. Although the Supreme Court didn't pass any adverse order against Sony Pictures under the Right of Person with Disabilities Act 2016 or Cinematograph Act 1952, it laid down and elaborated upon a few fundamental principles on disability rights. Prime Minister Modi's trip to Moscow represents a bold diplomatic effort by India to elevate Russian apprehensions regarding a potential shift in India's policy. Ever since the war with Ukraine began, Russia has been abandoned by Western democracies, while others have turned cautious in their engagements. To a large extent, the global south, especially China, rescued Russia from a financial meltdown and international isolation. India continued to have strong economic ties with Russia, but its highest interaction mechanism with Moscow, the annual bilateral summit, stopped after 21. Moscow harbored suspicions and that the perceived shift was due to the diplomatic pressure by the US. Modi's visit assumes special significance because few global leaders of the stature, barring Chinese President Xi Jinping, have visited Moscow in the last 2 years. In his third term in office, PM Modi picked Russia as his first foreign destination for a bilateral meeting. At a time when Russia is confronting Western isolation, optics matter a lot. Such visits help the Kremlin counter the Western narrative of Russia's global isolation. India has remained sympathetic to Russia. It has refused to condemn Russia, refrained from adverse voting in the UN, and disregarded Western threats of sanctions on its energy imports from Russia. India's trade with Russia reached a historic high of $65 billion in the last financial year. Its policy of importing cheap oil from Russia came under severe criticism, but the former justified its import by claiming that they helped keep energy prices and inflation under check. New Delhi anticipated a short war Over 2 years on, there are predecessors. Policymakers in New Delhi face India's diplomacy has come under severe strain in the tug of war between the two sides. Western criticism has increased, inflationary pressure looms large, and to its detriment, Russia has moved closer to China. Russia's growing dependence on China represents a serious concern for India. Moscow and Beijing have forged the closest possible ties in their history, generating fears that Russia will become a subordinate partner given the growing economic, demographic, and technological asymmetry between them. between them. India's strong ties with Russia somewhat change the dynamics and empower both sides. New Delhi seeks to offset the Chinese advantage in Eurasia by forging close ties with Russia. With the US and Japan on its side and Russia as a neutral player, India is better placed than China in the Asian security architecture. Moscow is mindful of New Delhi's concern that has somewhat accepted India's ties with the West, akin to how India has accepted the Moscow-Beijing alignment. There is nothing spectacular about this visit in terms of substantive agreements. It adds momentum to the relationship between the two states. As it stands, India-Russia ties are exceptionally comprehensive, covering everything under the sun from defense and trade to space, nuclear and cultural cooperation. They cooperate actively in multilateral forums such as BRICS, SCO, and the G20. Therefore, more than adding new items to the catalogue, they should focus on revamping existing ties. The trade imbalance has become a significant issue from New Delhi's perspective. Of the total $65 billion India's export constitute less than $5 billion. The imbalance is insubstantial in the long run. Russia should scale up its purchases from and investment in India. Exploring new areas of joint production can ease the burden on India. Further, a growing Indian concern is whether Russia can fulfill its defense commitments. Given the Western sanctions on the supply of semiconductor chips to Russia, India will expect a definite answer and time-bound delivery from the Russian side. A timely supply of defense spare parts of S-400s will alleviate India's concerns. Russia must invest more diplomatic and financial resources to finish the pending works of the international North-South transport corridor. Russia recently supplied cooking oil to India through this route. Both sides should expedite discussions on the free trade agreement with the Eurasian Union. The visuals of the Modi-Putin's embrace which send an unequivocal message to the international community that Russia occupies a pivotal place in India's strategic calculations, and the latter will not yield to external pressures. New Delhi is willing to withstand Western criticism. Escalation to sanctions and strategic alienation could change priorities. It appears assured that the West needs India just as much as India needs to the West. Hence, PM Modi is meeting with Putin on the same day that NATO celebrates its 75th anniversary in Washington, D.C. It is geopolitics. Stupid. Union Home Minister Amit Shah on Sunday virtually inaugurated Prime Minister College of Excellence for all 55 districts in MP and hailed Narendra Modi's far-sightedness in bringing the new education policy and the aim of making India a developed country by 2047. The Congress has tried to ensure representation for leaders cutting across caste communities and geographies by appointment Jorhat MP Gaurav Gogoi as its deputy leader in the Lok Sabha, Mavelikara MP K. Suresh as Chief Whip, and Vridhunagar MP Tagore and Krishnagaj MP Mohammad Javed as whips in the lower house. while Suresh is a Dalit leader from Kerala, Tagore is an OBC leader from Tamil Nadu, and Javed is a Muslim leader who hails from Bihar. Gogoi on the other side is from Assam and belongs to other backward class community. It is clear that the party has included leaders from different communities and states intending to give representation to a variety of places, caste and communities. While Rahul Gandhi, an MP from Raebareli, is a leader in the Lok Sabha, we have included people to ensure wider representation. The appointments also show that the party walks the talk when it comes to the representation of disadvantaged communities, said a senior Congress MP. AICC General Secretary KC Venugopal announced these appointments on Sunday. Venugopal said Congress Parliamentary Party Chairperson Sonia Gandhi had written to Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla to inform him about the appointments. Guided by the leader of the opposition in the Lok Sabha, Rahul Gandhi, the Congress and India parties energetically campaign the people's case in the Lok Sabha, Venugopal said. India to see retail digital pay to double by rupees $7 $7 trillion by 2030. India's exports have recorded healthy growth in May and remained in the positive zone in June and the first quarter of the current fiscal despite global challenges, Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal has said. He said that growth in the services sector is helping the country's outbound shipments to register positive growth rates. In May, exports were positive. The figure for June is also positive. The first quarter is also in the positive territory. Goyal said India's merchandise export rose 9.11% to $38 billion in May. During April-May this fiscal, the outbound shipment grew by 5.1% to $73 billion. The Commerce Ministry will officially release the export data for June on July 15. Despite the ongoing two wars, the Red Sea crisis and container shortage issue, our exports are in a positive zone. One more advantage that we have is the fast-paced growth in the service export, the minister said. In some ways, India being reduced to 44 for 3 inside the power play after being asked to bat first by Zimbabwe was the first perfect start for both sides in Harare on Sunday. Zimbabwe were desperate to bounce back from a poor outing on Saturday and to show they are a better side than that 10-wicket drubbing suggested. For India, it was already clear that their top order is not an area of concern, with the likes of Yashasvi Jaiswal, Shubman Gill and Abhishek Sharma. Gaikwad left out for the fifth match, piling on the runs. So Zimbabwe got what they evidently wanted after winning the toss, and India would not have minded their middle order getting a platform to show what they are capable of. Sanju Samson made the most of the opportunity, aided by cameos from Riyan Parag and Shivam Dube to power India to 167 for 6. Zimbabwe threatened in patches during the run chase, but it was target 42 runs too far as India wrapped up the series by 4-1. King Carlos eases into throne. In the resounding 5-set epic at last year's Wimbledon final was a coronation. The subdued straight sets beat down on Sunday was a confirmation. Novak Djokovic is the greatest tennis player of all time, but he is no longer the greatest tennis player at present, as Carlos Alcaraz went about dismantling and at time dismembering Djokovic's legendary tennis repertoire. He did not merely do with the convention of a challenger attempting to storm the palace, but also with the remarkable ease of an heir doing no more than occupying his rightful place on the throne. The scoreline read this: even with an inexplicable late wobble, it never really felt that close. Alcaraz continues to surpass even the sky-high expectations that have preceded his precocious talent by defending his title and winning a fourth Grand Slam singles trophy. He not only becomes the sixth man to have won the French Open and Wimbledon back-to-back, but he also surpassed the tally of majors won by Andy Murray, darling of the same center court crowd that Alcaraz has so seamlessly played on his tune over the past 2 years.